we'll go through the last document. So this is a really high level change document. Jonathan probably went through a lot of this in his talk, and he's an amazing training lead and change manager. But I thought this one's useful from a really brief kind of shortened version of an impact assessment. And it's really triggered to help you think through some of the things you may need to consider on a project. So in this impact assessment, like I said, it's not a fully detailed one that you would see like a change manager like Jonathan do, but it does have some of the key things that are really useful to think about. So it allows you to call out what are you changing? So is it a process that you're changing? Is that how a team would do something? Or are you removing a piece of software that they're currently using? So it may be all of the above, or it may just be one of them that you're changing. You may only be changing something for a specific organization or a specific team within the organization. So for the example here, a law centre is wanting to change their client intake form because it's all manual and done when the client comes in to see them, and they want to make it a lot smoother and easier for the client, and also for the lawyer that will be meeting with them. So you put in here that your the business that's going to be focused on or will be impacted by the change is the law centre. You would highlight any processes that would be impacted. So, for example, here I've got a client intake form. That's the process that will be changing. These are the two that link back to that current state I was talking about in the project plan. In the change manager or even the business analyst, if you don't have a change manager, would then be able to pull out and say the high level current state is that the intake forms are completed manually at the client's first appointment, and then they'd be able to call out what we're planning on doing now we've done our future state maps is that they're going to do a digital form prior to their session, and it will be available for them to access via CSnet. So then that enables us to really see what is the description of the change. So how are we going to impact people, and what does that mean? So you may put in your what is the difference between the current and the future state. It may be that the intake form's now in a digital format. The client has access it prior to their appointment. The legal team no longer need to do this intake form during the appointment, and they can actually view all of the information once the client's completed it, making it a far more streamlined appointment for the client, and it's also reducing the client's cost. So they may be things that you would consider as your what's in it for me during your change conversations with the employees. And that also may link back to the benefits you're trying to achieve as well. So in here you would have your high, medium and low. So how large is the impact? So this is really a guide as to how big do you think this change is for the team? Is it going to significantly impact their roles? So you may have a large change as people's jobs may be being made redundant from this change, or people will have a completely different job description. So things like that will influence how big this change is for people. You would include the amount of people that will be impacted by it. This helps you understand from a training perspective and a communication perspective what sort of training might be needed and how that could be communicated. That might also, once again, back in the impact, if it's a really low change, it's not really going to hugely change everyone's job. You may decide to just do a team meeting and you'll walk through the change with everyone and what this means to them in a team meeting, versus you may actually need to run training versus via video or in person. I also always include number of systems impacted. And the reason for this being is that it's really important to understand the flow of your data, and that you may be impacting an application programming interface, so API, by changing how you're doing that work today. Or you may be, by changing a field, impacting a report that's been built out in Power BI. So I'll always call out the number of systems that we may or potentially could be impacting, and what is the name of that system that could be impacted. And the reason being is you can then consider that in your system testing. So or letting the business know that, by the way, if we change this field and how that data is captured, you're going to also need to pay to change these reports, or you'll need to get someone to change the current application programming interface outside of this project because it's not in our scope, or you may ask them if they want to do a change request and include it within the project scope, and then the project manager would organise for it to be done. So this document is a document that will continually evolve throughout the project. So you'll use it at the start to sort of identify the processes and how they've done. Then when you know your future state, you'll start building out what is the future state and how's that going to impact people. And then you'll start identifying people that are impacted, systems that are impacted. So it becomes a really good living and breathing document. And it's also a great way of starting a conversation.